With that, Council, I'm available for any questions. Again, I'd just like to thank your city attorney, city manager, and Mr. Sherritt for helping us along this whole process. It's been a long process, and this should be the final stage of it. Judge Moore?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Moore?
It's been a long journey, and I'm glad to see it come to an end, as everyone here is, I'm sure. At least from my perspective, I think you and your colleague, Mr. Rodner, have provided exceptional legal services to the City of Venice throughout this process. I'd also like to amplify, from my perspective as well, what I perceive to be the very proactive decisions that were made by the city manager, Marty Black, right up front before we even got in front of a court to correct these problems. And I think Wayne Hall and Bob Anderson worked on that as well, and Chris Sherrick, as you pointed out. I think we all appreciate the fact that they really jumped on this in advance, long before the plea agreement was ever entered, and really did a great job in addressing the problems, and we will continue to do that. I did have one question, though. In the compliance agreement on page 3, it specifically says, conditions giving rise to the offense. The Clean Water Act violations for which Venice pled guilty were the result of the intentional actions of its former high-level executives, managers, and supervisors who oversaw the day-to-day operations of the Pollution Control Division and the East Side Wastewater Treatment Facility, which resulted in the illegal discharge of effluent and false reporting to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I guess as a follow-up, I would like to know whether or not you have any indication whether the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to pursue any charges on an individual basis against those who, even in the compliance agreement, are admittedly responsible for this.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and unfortunately I don't have a definitive answer as to whether a separate criminal proceeding will be brought against those individuals. Under the requirements of the plea agreement, the city is required to cooperate with the United States in their ongoing investigation and hopefully their ultimate prosecution of the individuals known as the executive group who are responsible for the underlying violations. We have had some discussions with the federal government. We have provided assistance and evidence to the federal government, but at the same time we have not received any confirmation that they are pursuing additional criminal charges. For that reason, we did want included in the compliance agreement a reference to the executive group and a reference to what we believe is the underlying cause of why we were in Atlanta to begin with.
I think what concerns me is we wouldn't be here today having this hearing if it were not for the unilateral acts of some individuals acting far beyond the scope of their authority as employees for the City of Venice. And I think it mitigates the city's culpability greatly if individual actions are accountable. So I, for one, would hope that you could pursue that. I know that we are going to pursue the cooperation required with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and if they deem it appropriate to do that. But that's my feeling. I don't know how anybody else feels about it. Thank you very much, Mr. Noble.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I agree with Judge Moore. I think getting ahead of it was what we had to do. As soon as we had the opportunity, we, moved with some dispatch. And you guys represented us well, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, we've got a couple of pieces of business that we need to do. We need to authorize the execution of the compliance agreement.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Tacey.
I move to authorize the execution of the compliance agreement between the City of Venice and the United States Environmental Protection Agency.
Second.
Any discussion?
With the corrected signature page provided by the Environmental Protection
Oh, this
Agency.
didn't include that?
I'd like it to be clear in the record.
With the corrected
It's
signature
a substituted
page
signature page, yes.
Okay, thank you. Second with that.
Second.
Any other discussion? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And I guess we get to make sure Mr. Black remains on our employ for several years. Mr. Wilson. for at least
Like
3
a
years.
3-year sentence?
Yes.
I move to appoint City Manager Marty Black as the Ethics Compliance Officer with the consultation and approval of the United States Environmental Protection Agency, effective immediately.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Taylor?
I know that you're very busy, and I understand that you were very proactive in this agreement, but is it typical for a CEO to be the ethics compliance officer?
No, but it is at the request of the EPA officials that I serve in this role.
And at some time in the
They
future, that may
would-
change?
Not unless you want to open up the compliance agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay.
But it does require their consent to appoint an individual, and they requested that I serve in this role during this period.
I know that you'll do a great role, but I'm just thinking about your other responsibilities, too.
Understand, and it's with that full understanding that I agreed to serve in that role. And part of what we've provided for in our ethics, post code of ethics and conduct, are certain timeframes for response. And I have already received consent to those drafts from the EPA attorneys in Atlanta that it meets their expectations. So we're intentionally ensuring that there is an adequate and sufficient time to conduct investigations rather than, a 5-day deadline or a 3-day deadline. We're building in safeguards so that we have a reasonable period of time for investigations. I'm hopeful that we won't have any because of the policies and procedures we're putting in place, but we'll certainly have an open mind and conduct a complete investigation for any complaints that are filed under the procedures once we put them in place. In the meantime, if there are any staff members or individuals that believe we're in non-compliance with your actions, I will immediately take those under advisement if anyone brings those forward and conduct an investigation in the interim period until we have a formal process in place.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thanks for all the
Council.
help you gave to us, Mr. Anderson.
Just a couple of comments. City of Venice has had a very beneficial relationship with the Fowler White firm for quite some time. They have assisted us on numerous difficult cases. In this instance, when Mr. Black and I became aware that the possibility of a criminal indictment of the city for violations of the Clean Water Act, we knew we needed the assistance of outside counsel. And I have to tell you that the successful conclusion that we've achieved regarding the investigation, the criminal charges, and the debarment, we could not have obtained those results without the assistance of Ron Noble and Seth Rodner and the Fowler White firm. So it's just another chapter in a very beneficial relationship that I'm sure we're going to continue to utilize for the benefit of the city of Venice and its residents. And I really appreciate all that you've done, and we got really good results. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. It's been our pleasure, and we look forward to assisting you in the future, but not on a similar type of matter. Thank you again.
From that standpoint, we hope we don't see ever again.
Ron, do you have the originals for my signature? Great.
Okay.